to our annual budget forum. This is an experiment, doing it both Facebook Live and on YouTube channel. If you do have questions, you're at home, you can type them in and we'll transfer them. I won't be answering the questions, Scott will. But last Wednesday, the Congregational Council met, and we took action to bring forward a budget to the congregation to be approved at the annual meeting in 2 weeks. But today is our forum, and Scott's here to present the budget that the council selected to advance to the congregation to answer any questions you may have. So, Scott?
Thank you, Lane. Good morning. So this is an opportunity. We started this probably 15 or 16 years ago when we were getting ready for the congregational meeting to present the budget at a forum like this 2 weeks before, so you're not getting to the annual meeting and voting on the budget the first time you saw it. So today is informational. If you have any questions, please bring them up. We'll try to, I'm sure the technology is going to work perfectly all the way around. The first sheet, and Max got it up there, is the 2020 review and 21 budget. So I always start with kind of a recap of where we ended the year for 2020. And obviously it was a very unique and challenging year with only having in-person worship for a part of the year. We came through it incredibly well. I think for a congregation, we are all very blessed and very happy with how it went in this very strange and unique year. You can see on the cash flow for the year, we had a negative cash flow of about $16,000. Our offering income came in at about 81%, which, you know, in March when we went to completely virtual worship, we were all wondering how is that going to affect our giving. So to come in at 81% of our budget for the year, we were very happy with and very pleased and blessed. You can see December was a good month, and so our year-to-date offering, if you look in the middle there, was at $366. That's about $68,000 under what we had budgeted. We did use about $30,000 of our designated for operating. We budget $20,000 every year. Money that we have in designated is kind of our savings. We've had a buildup in there over the years, and we have always used about $10,000 of that a year. This comes from the Selma Olson income from that trust that we used for several years, and now that is actually in our designated. So we usually have ended up using about 10. We budget 20, and this year was 30. So to only have to use an extra 10,000 of our savings in this year was a great blessing as well. Part of the reason that we only had, even though we were under budget on income that much, you can see our expenses were at 91% of budget as well, or $44,000 under what we thought they would be. A lot of this goes to a lot of the programs or worship expenses that we would have had this year, we didn't, with summer camps and VBS and some of those things. Not a great thing, but it kind of flowed through with the pandemic and having to cancel a lot of those activities. So overall, you know, our general, we ended up with a little over 11,000 in the balance at the end of the year. We're off to a great start in January right now. So our operating account is in very good shape right now. On the designated side, you can see we had about 240,000 at the beginning of the year, and we're down to about 172. Not only from the 30,000 that we used for the operating, but we also had a few other major projects that we were able to accomplish during the year. We had a heating and air repair, about 32,000 that we funded through that, as well as the upgrade to the video and sound system, which is allowing us to do this today. So we used about 20,000 from Memorial and 10,000 from our designated as well. So we had several big projects besides that we were able to fund during this year. And then our building campaign balances, you can see there, we started out with around 97,000, and we ended up about 192,000. That's besides making all of our payments during the year. So this was the first year of our 3-year campaign, and we'll cover that a little bit more when we go over the budget. But overall, like I said, for what we went through in 2020, very pleased at where we ended up. Are there any questions at the end of for 2020? Lisa, are you getting any from cyberspace there? No? Okay, if not, then I'll have you flip that over, and Mac, if you can go to... So then if you look at your budget here, the 5-page handout, as well as the budget note, they kind of go side by side. So obviously on the budget for next year, the big thing is what we budget for income. I kept the offering budget the same for 2021 as it was for 2020 at $435,000. That is about an 18.5% increase over what we got for 2020. But if you look at the last 8 years that are there, it's very consistent to kind of where we were pre-pandemic. 2019, the offering income was about $433,000, so we kept it flat there. And we anticipate when things return to normal, that will approximate kind of where we were heading pre-pandemic. You can see the budget or the offering over the last 8 years has steadily climbed a little bit. We were flat for quite a few years at around $380,000, and then the last 4 or 5 years we steadily increased from $400 on up. So we feel pretty good about that number as we get back to more normal year this year. If we look at the pledges, this is the other thing that we kind of look at. We always look at kind of trend-wise where we're going, and then also with our pledges. And you can see right now we have a little over $303,000, which is approximating where we were last year, and even actually more than 2 years ago, where we actually had our highest. And as I looked back through what we've gotten in pledges this year, again, being a different year, not having in-person worship so as much, so a lot of these we're getting in through the mail, but feel pretty good about that number as well with what we have that's coming in right now. So any questions on the offering income? If not, then the rest of the income, fairly straightforward, looking at using about $15,000 of our contingency this year. Like I said, we normally use about 10. This year we use 30, so hopefully getting back to a little more normal year, we'll do 15. And then we're using some of the memorial and script funds to fund special projects or building maintenance, those types of bigger needs that we have. Any questions on the income then? If not, then, Mac, if you want to go to the actual budget. We'll kind of cover the rest of the expenses fairly quickly. Pretty straightforward from last year. You can see we budgeted raises for the staff. Two main differences that we'll have this year with staffing will be that we've got Terry retired in the office, so Kim is coming on board full-time. So that'll be a transition. We've had Kim as an office assistant for the last 10 years, I think she said the other day, which is incredible. But we're going to be needing to budget for some additional office help eventually. We just are figuring out now with the kind of the change and the transition where we're going to need that. But probably not in the role that Kim has had over the last few years. Oh, it's up. Mac warned me I was going to have to do some banter in between while they were changing over. So if you go through the budget that you can see on the first page, the income is a little less than actually what we budgeted for this last year. So taking everything into effect and all the situation where we have been. The expenses then, as you go through, Mac, if you just kind of scroll down, you can see our salaries, staff salaries will be a little higher this year. Again, that's filling all of those positions for the year, as well as then when you look at the staff allowance. So total staff budget is actually increased a little bit year over year, but not a great deal from what we had budgeted for last year. The other major thing that'll change is Deacon Lisa will become Pastor Lisa sometime this year, and so we've got a number in there. Obviously, that'll go through the call committee as far as what that ends up exactly being, but we wanted to have a number in there to reflect where that could be. The rest of the expenses, as you go through, I'm not going to cover each one of those lines because that's a little tedious, but they're realistically looking at it with the year that we think is going to be, where we'll probably resume some normalcy later in the year. So some of the expenses we've adjusted. You know, we're not doing fellowships, so we're not having rolls every week, so we're cutting back on that. Some of the other outreach and fellowship areas we've adjusted accordingly. But realistically, if you look at the total expense line, then we budgeted almost exactly what we did last year. So we were at 493 in our budget last year, and we've got 493 again. Again, trying to keep it realistic, but understanding, you know, where we're at. So even with the increases in the salary, we were able to be even for the year, which gives us a balanced budget. Any questions on the operational budget? Then that covers basically all of the expenses and income that we have through our general account, our operating account for the year. Lisa, no questions from there? Okay. If you go to the last page, then, Mac will transition again. We'll go to the building report. None that I could probably tell. So as that loads up there, you know, next week we will have the forum for the new building campaign for the new addition. And I'll cover some of the aspects of funding, and I know we've gotten questions out there on, is the money that we're receiving for the current pledges, is that paying down the debt, is that for the new? And to be honest, the answer is it's a combination of both. So we're prepared to look at adding some additional debt for the new building, as well as looking at paying down this debt. And you'll see here, oh, it's up, where we're at, where we're projecting we'll be at the end of this year. Did you confirm the amount? Okay. So you can see on the building report there, our balance, amazingly, a little over 8 years ago, was $2.347 million. Last year, we started the year at $876,000 left on that loan, and ended the year at $674,000. So, yes, great news. I always like putting this in there, the principal payments there in the middle. You can see right there what we've paid total on that loan, almost $1.7 million paid down on that loan. So we're making great progress on it. Our building fund balances at the end of the year, you can see we're at $191,000. I mentioned earlier we've received a little over $300,000 already on this during the first year of this 3-year pledge cycle. And we expect another probably $500,000 to $600,000 coming in off of that. If you look at the balances at the bottom there, how we project we're going to be at the end of the year, we've always, since we refinanced a few years ago, kept our payment at the $18,560 a month, which we've started paying on initially. Our actual payment, if you look down there, our monthly payment is $14,626. So by paying that $18,560, we actually pay extra principal every year of a little over $47,000. That's in addition to how much principal we're paying, $177,000 you can see up above. So we're knocking that principal down pretty quickly at this point. And the balance, that if we continue to do that through this year, which obviously we would do, barring no other debt that we would have, we'd be down to under $500,000, down to $478,000 by the end of the year. So as we look forward and kind of think about next week and looking at the building campaign, those payments, one thing we could do is drop those payments down to our actual payment, which is $14,000. And then if we had a new loan that was about $5,000 a month, it actually wouldn't be that much different than what we've already been paying. So something to think about as we look at it. It will be probably a combination. Rates are very low right now, but they are starting to tick up. So as we look at what it would cost for a new loan, would we roll this one into it or just keep them separate? You can see our rate is at 4.625 right now, so we might leave this one alone and then do a new one for the new building. But we'll take a look at that and see if it makes sense to roll them together eventually. Any questions on the building budget for next year? None out there. Okay. Well, that's all I had for today. It was, like I said, a very challenging year, 2020, in so many instances. But with God's blessings, we had a great year as far as being able to meet all of our expenses. We never really were worried during the year. So as we head forward to 2021, we look for another great year. Thank you.
I'll be gone next Sunday, or my sister-in-law.